Hi, guys, and welcome to the Growth Point TV podcast. This is another episode, and today I'll be interviewing Tawanda Chihambakwe. We just want to cover the drone industry. So, hello and welcome to the podcast, Tawanda.
Hi, thanks for having me on your platform.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I know we just have been a bit of struggle with connecting, but it's all good and well. So as usual, the first segment of the podcast, we just want to talk more in detail, especially about the business side of the drone industry. And then the second segment, we just want to talk about your personal growth journey, just to see what things you've been up to and what led you, obviously, gradually leading towards starting a business. And perhaps you can give us some of the lessons you've learned so far running a business and obviously also working in full-time employment there at some point. Yeah. So that's pretty much it, what we're going to cover today. Yeah, so I think to start off, could you just tell us a bit about Zimbabwe Flying Labs? Because I think that's the first thing that came right on the top of your bio. Yeah, so if we start off with Zim Flying Labs, and what is that all about? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thanks. I guess I'm at an interesting place right now. We've just recently launched Zimbabwe Flying Labs.
Okay.
We've been running now for about 4 months. We got the country license to run Zimbabwe Flying Labs. And basically, Zimbabwe Flying Labs is a local center of innovation and development for drone technology and robotics, right? And it's connected within a global network of other centers or innovation hubs, right, across the world. So the Flying Labs network is a network of these hubs, and the Flying Labs network is now in over 38 countries around the world, with more countries coming on board. And with my company, my commercial drone company, we secured a license to start up and to run the Zimbabwe Flying Labs, which is the local chapter of this global kind of network and platform. And the Flying Labs network is the flagship program of an American company, American-Swiss company called We Robotics. And their focus is really on leveraging technology, just general technology, for good and for social and humanitarian impact. So the thrust of our work is in that space, which is using drone technology and robotics for social and humanitarian impact.
Okay. Yeah, that's very descriptive in terms of being part of a wider organization, not just having at least your private company running in Zim, being part of a wider global network, really. Does this help in terms of accessing resources, sharing information with benchmarking yourself with definitely what's happening globally in the drone industry? Is that what was the attraction for you to be part of the Zimbabwean Flying Labs, the chapter of this network?
Yeah, so for me, once I found out about the Flying Labs themselves and the work that they've been doing around the world, and how they're interconnected with each other and they share resources, tools, and information, I was like, I want to plug into this. And I found out, in Southern Africa, there weren't that many flying labs. Zimbabwe didn't have a flying labs. I think there was only one in Namibia and in Zambia at the time. So, I connected with the guys and I was like, look, this is something I want to do. I've already been doing work in the drone space. We've already been doing work in terms of, trying to get into communities and teach and educate people about drones. So it was a very good fit for us to connect with it because the heart that I have and the vision I have for what the drone industry should look like in Zimbabwe is really a lot of what's happening, and it ties in very well with what the Flying Labs global mission and vision is, in a sense. So we saw that and we're like, look, being a part of this network really unlocks value and allows us to share resources. So take, for example, a project could be done by Spain Flying Labs, which is one of the flying labs in the group. And if they do a project that's related to agriculture, so let's say we use drones or crop spraying drones to deal with an outbreak of locusts or any sort of kind of pest and disease. When they run that project in Spain or any other flying labs around the world, we have direct access to the data information of that specific project. So the whole project plan, the idea, the budget, the best drone tool that they use, the learnings, where they, face challenges, and the results of all of that. We have access to that and to the people who did the project. So when we want to replicate and we have a situation that happens in Zimbabwe that's similar, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. It means our success rate for all our projects goes right up, because somewhere around the world, someone has done or used or needed to use drones in a particular context to help, be it for a national disaster. We had the cyclone Idai hit us 2 years ago. And in Nepal and Peru and all the other places where they're prone to having disasters, the flying labs there, if we had been part of the flying labs there, we could have actually leveraged on the learnings of how to use drone technology for search and rescue, etc., and then be able to deliver it here in a local context. So being part of that network means I can tap into what's happening in Kenya. I can tap into what's happening in India. I can tap into what's happening in the Dominican Republic, for example, right? From right here in Harare, Zimbabwe. Take what makes sense and localize the technology to deliver solutions to the challenges we're facing here.
Okay. Yeah, that's very insightful. I think it's very clever, actually, to be part of this organization. It makes a lot of sense. Because if I take you back a bit to your company, you started Precision Aerial Drone Services in 2018. Was it just you that founded the project, or did you co-found it?
So I'm the founder of Precision Aerial Drone Services. But for us to get to that point, we had, and I say we, my partner and I, had started an earlier initiative within the drone space called Drone Racing
Zimbabwe. Okay. Yeah. So it's like one thing led to another. Okay.
Yeah. So it was a crossover. It was, by the time we got to
crossover.
Precision Aerial, we had literally, it was just like, okay, we've been doing this. Let's now do this. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I was just reading in terms of the drone industry. I mean, it's $1 billion industry. I mean, obviously in the US, they sell loads of consumer drones, but the applications are endless. I was just reading mapping, like you mentioned, agriculture, construction, insurance, disaster management, property, security, and obviously, the military as well. There's so many applications for drones. So in terms of Precision Aerial Drone Services.
Sectors, okay. This includes agriculture. We're involved in disaster management, which also spills over into healthcare. We're involved in energy. We're using drones in the energy sector. That's your solar and your electricity and power kind of spaces. We're into the general surveying aspect. We also help with insurance, helping with claims, or before we even get to claims, is helping with deciding on what kind of risk an insurance company should take by giving them accurate data that will help them to get those kind of risks. We're also involved now as well with a bit of telecoms and helping with cell tower inspections and that kind of thing. We're involved in infrastructure development, construction, helping give data to project managers that helps them to deliver on their projects faster, more efficiently, and have a more accurate data sets to work with when they're looking at how do we make sure that our structures are actually built correctly? How do we make sure that there aren't any cracks in what we're building and constructing? So we're involved in quite a bit of different things there. That's our first vertical, which is drones as a service business.
Okay.
Our second vertical, which really excites me, is the consultancy aspect. So what we found is that across Africa and even in the world, because drone industry is emerging, there's a lot of people getting into the space, right? And then the barrier to entry seems rather, I would say it's a moderate barrier to entry. It's not low, but it's not that high. But the requirement for licensing, so for you to operate a drone, you need to be licensed.
Yeah, because a lot of people buy them and they just flying them at home or in the park, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And in local context, when we look at Zimbabwe as well, right, there's very few of us who are actually licensed to operate drones. So we saw that, to help organizations get to a point of actually being compliant according to the regulations, they need help. They're not going to be able to figure it out for themselves. So we offer consultancy. So what we do is we help organizations. Some of them are our customers. So we might offer a service today, let's say for a construction company, to help them. Then what we can then do is cross over into the consultancy and help them to actually bring the technology in-house. So some companies actually need to have.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, just to stop. So do you actually help them to purchase drones, that sort of thing? The whole, if they want to buy the drones, that sort of thing. Is that what? So consulting? Yeah, sure. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So
go on.
Yeah. So when we look at the consultancy, we help them, yes, to buy the right drone, because there's hundreds of different types of drones, and people think one drone can do all these things, and it can't. You have to have the right drone for the right use case and application. So we help them find the best tool. The second thing is we help them become compliant. So some of the things and requirements for a company to operate drones, right? There are regulations around how companies are allowed to operate drones, and companies either are ignorant, right, or they don't know where to get the right information or who to help them with the process. So we go in there and say, okay, what you need is a drone program. You don't just need the drone. You need to understand safety. You need to understand, how do I manage the person who's going to operate the drone, right? So you might hire, or you might train one of your staff on how to operate the drone, but there are other systems in place. How do we manage the data, right, that we get from the drones? Because you're going to be flying different missions. You know what I mean? So you have to have a data management plan. You also have to have a maintenance plan. How often do we maintain this drone? Okay. You also have to have a way to maintain your systems, right? So there's a requirement for safety management systems. Drones in themselves require a lot of safety and precautions that are taken when you're operating and doing every kind of flight mission. And wherever you're regulated, the government will come and inspect, once or twice a year to check your record keeping. Okay, are you keeping a record of all your flights? Right? The person who's flying, are they licensed to be doing that? Are they current on their license? Because licenses aren't like once off. You have to keep going with
keep licensing. So, that's fine.
Exactly. So we go into a company and we say, right, we look at it and say, right, this is probably the best drone you need. This is who in your company you need to train, right? So we identify, the person at the best level, operational level, to actually be upskilled to get to flying the drone. We train the managers, because you must also train the managers and supervisors to understand the technology and the limitations and the extent to which you can go with the tech. Because otherwise the company might think, oh, because I bought a drone, it means I can do all these things. No, actually, your drone means you can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. This is what you can expect. Here are the different software programs and platforms you need to get as well for you to, maximize the use of your drone. It's not just the drone on its own. And the truth of the matter is, people don't get it, is that it's actually not so much about the drone. It's actually about the data that you get from the drone and what you do with it. So we help them understand that. That's the consultancy aspect of it. And then lastly, the last vertical within our business is the training. So we've just come out now with professional training programs. And what this is we call it advanced, drone training, because even if you do go and get your drone pilot license, it doesn't give you the full understanding of how to use your drone in every specific sector and use case application.
Oh, right.
So for example, in agriculture, you need to learn about drones in agriculture. You don't get that by getting your pilot license. You need to learn about drones in mining or drones in energy. We then have courses where we take licensed pilots and the companies, if it's a company that also needs a training, and then we train them on how to actually maximize on the drone and all the different things that you can do with the drone data and information. Yeah, that's pretty much what we do as Precision Aero.
Okay. It's very, very comprehensive. You really unpacked it for us, and I think a lot of people that'll be watching or listening will probably have all the answers from your description of the services that you're offering. So you started in 2018 officially. So how many people are involved in your team at the moment?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Because we had to scale back just in the last year. We were at a point where we're like, okay, we're expanding, and then the pandemic hit. So so far right now, what we have still with us is 3 people working full time. We have 2 other people that work with us on projects. But just over a year ago, I think at the end of 2019, we got into about 6 full-time staff. So we've had to cut back a bit. And we were in the process of expanding and opening up another office in Johannesburg, which we managed to do, but we haven't been able to now get to work because it opened up and then the pandemic came. So so we're really at a place where we're hoping that we'll be able to grow the team a bit more as things get better.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair enough. So in terms of if we go back, just looking at the whole industry, the whole drone market and industry in Zimbabwe at the moment, are there other players in the space, or are you still one of the few pioneers, or what does the competitive landscape look like for you guys then?
Yeah, look, it's quite a competitive market.
Yeah.
It's quite competitive because of what people call, in business they call them substitutes. Okay, right?
Yeah.
And what you'll find is that in the drone industry, there's the people who are doing it legally, correctly, and compliant, and then there's a whole bunch of people who aren't. Right.
Okay.
So, like in Zimbabwe, for example, there's less than 15 licensed drone pilots, and the regulations and the law actually stipulates, and this is for Zimbabwe and all the other countries you can think of where they're operating drones. They all have regulations. You need to be trained and licensed. You can't just buy a drone, go on YouTube, teach yourself how to fly it, and then, oh, I'm offering services, which is a lot of what's happening here. So in Zimbabwe right now, the people who are actually licensed, right, and are formal organizations or companies that are allowed to offer drone services, right, in a legal context in Zimbabwe, is less than a handful. Less than a handful in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
Right? Wow. So on a real scape or landscape, right, you're looking at it and saying, okay, there's less than 5 companies in Zimbabwe that are fully licensed and allowed to operate drones. However, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people with drones in Zimbabwe who bought their drones and they're out there saying, I'm a drone pilot. They have no qualifications, they have no training, but they say, I'm a drone pilot because they bought a drone. So now we're competing with those people. And the biggest challenge that comes now is that when we go to engage companies, they're so used to seeing the substitute, which is an unlicensed, untrained person who then says, oh, a drone is just a tool to take photos and videos with, and it's a whole lot more than that. So they're used to seeing that, and that's all they're hearing. So by the time we come there and we say, no, actually, this is what you should expect from a drone service company. These are the things you actually need to comply with. We actually need to do pre-flight checks and planning. We need permission to operate and fly. They've been so used to someone who says, yeah, I can do it. I can do whatever. And I'll do it for $1 when it's worth $10. Do you see what I mean? So the competition is stiff, but we're fighting people who are untrained and people who are substitutes for the real thing.
Oh, yeah. It presents a huge hurdle. Definitely, I think it's definitely the impact of the informal sector in Zim that's obviously feeding into that, and it's really puts a lot of companies obviously that are doing it the right way at a massive disadvantage. So, in terms of what's the appetite for the government in terms of regulating this industry? Is it something that's easy for the government to enforce and really bring in a lot of rules and regulations? I mean, the rules and regulations are there, but how, in terms of enforcement and making sure companies and service providers are compliant, how is that process being in Zimbabwe at the moment?
So we've had regulations in Zimbabwe now for 2 years, just over 2 years. The regulations were published in December 2018. And, we were involved in helping to push for those regulations, to get them out. We were happy when they came out because we're like, okay, guys, we're going to formalize the industry and get things going. Unfortunately, what's happened is it's taken a bit of time for the government through the regulator, which is the Civil Aviation Authority, to implement the statutes of the regulations. Right. Okay. So it's hard, for example, for people to get licenses in Zimbabwe because there's no drone training school yet. Okay. And the law requires that for you to operate a drone for commercial purposes, you need a license. Also for companies, for them to operate drones, they not only need a licensed operator, they themselves as a company need an operator's license for drones as a company. There's things like that. And there's a lot of other things in there. Now, the government, probably because of constraints of budget, haven't been able to put the resources behind building up a team in the civil aviation that's purely focused on the drone side of things. Right. So ideally, there should be a drone department within the civil aviation. They don't have that yet. What they are doing is they are gradually working in some of the things. Right now, they're requiring asking people to come in and register their drones. Drones need to be registered. All drones need to be registered. Yeah, so when you bring it in or if it's sent as a gift, it has to be registered, right? And, they've been now going out and saying what we want to do, but there hasn't been enough public awareness campaigns. There's nothing happening on TV or in the press around giving out the information about what the regulations are. So then it almost seems like people are like, oh, I haven't heard about it, so it doesn't exist, which isn't really true.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, people use as scapegoat, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you. So, in terms of becoming registered, because it says you're licensed remote pilot aircraft systems pilot. Pilot. I don't know if I'm saying that right. You're registered to fly drones. Can you just talk about how to get licensed as a pilot in terms of being able to? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so being a licensed pilot and what that actually means, it means that I'm trained and I have an understanding of how drones operate, right, within a specified airspace, okay? Which is now which is in the I would say the territory of Zimbabwe. Okay? My license, I got it from South Africa, right? Yeah. So I've been trained on how to operate drones within the South African context. And then when I came here, I then connected with the Civil Aviation, and then they gave me the information material that I needed to upgrade my knowledge around Zimbabwe's airspace. Okay? So drones operate within the airspace. So just like on the ground, we have rules of the road, right?
Yeah, when you want to we understand.
When you're operating drones, there's rules of the air. So your license teaches you about rules of the air and qualifies you to be able to operate drones within the confines of the rules of the air. Yeah. Because in airspace, there's drones, there's small aircraft, there's helicopters, there's large aircraft. And drones now, because of the technology and capabilities, they're playing in the same airspace as these, larger.
It's quite serious here. Because even in the UK, we had the problem where people are flying drones and that shut down the whole airport for, I think, a few days. So it's, we understand the implications. Yeah, but yeah, definitely. So in terms of getting your license, how long does that process take? You did this in South Africa. How long will it take to complete a certification to become a drone pilot?
Yeah, well, it really depends on you. Hey, it depends on you. But the average time it takes is probably about 3 to 4 months on average for you to go from starting to actually getting your license. And that involves you going for training and it really is 2 parts to the training. There's a theoretical training, and then there's the practical operations and flight training. And the theoretical training is very, very similar to the ground school program course that you would take if you wanted to become an airline pilot, right? We learn about the same kind of subjects, air law, meteorology, navigation, all that kind of stuff, right? So we learn all about that because you are needing to operate in the same airspace as other aircraft. So you've got to be able to speak the language and understand everything, like how to read the weather, but from an aviation perspective, not just an app that you check. You see what I mean? And how to be able to communicate and know what's happening with other aircraft. What are their call signs and where are the notifications that talk about restricted areas and prohibited areas, where you can fly, where you can't fly. So we learn about all of that. Then we do the practical, which is the practical test, and that's practical flying, which is cool and fun, especially if you've been using drones before and that kind of thing. And then we also have to do an aviation medical exam. Exactly like an airline pilot, we have to do the same aviation medical exam, which is a thorough exam that really checks whether you are fit and able to operate a small aircraft called a drone.
Okay, who knew it was that intense in terms of getting the certification? Because a lot of people, even listening to this, will probably just be thinking drones. There's still a lot of shops they actually sold within the toy section of most places. So a lot of people still see these as just toys you can mess around with in your garden, or you just have a bit of fun with it. But there's a serious commercial application, which is the reason why I wanted to bring you on this podcast so we can talk about this business. Yeah. So I think my question now is, in terms of precision aerial, out of the 3 verticals that you talked about, which sector do you think is the most profitable and has the potential for the most growth, in your opinion, so far?
Wow. Oh.
Yeah,
that's a good question. You know what? I don't want to give. It's not as simple as that. I think there's a lot of market dynamics, and you've got to look at also the country you're in, and just how advanced your country is in terms of its adoption of the technology. Right? So right now, for example, you might make a lot of money offering the service because there's few people who know how to offer a specific service and deliver on it and do well.
Yeah.
So you can make a lot of money offering services. And I think the other competitors, especially in Zimbabwe, our competition, the other companies that are actually licensed and trained to operate drones and legally doing it, right? They are focused on the drones as a service. So they provide the service. They're not trying to teach you how to do it yourselves. They want you to continue paying them to do the work.
Yeah, I understand.
You know what I mean? So there's a lot of money in that, right? But then when you move over to a space where now you've got a lot of players who are licensed, who are doing it properly and that kind of thing, any smart company, you know, of a decent size, once they realize, oh, this is a service that adds value. So as a company, you can start by outsourcing the service. But then, depending on your company, it makes sense for you to bring the service of that in-house.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
So there'll come a point where the consultancy will then have a lot more value because I can charge more as a consultant, giving you a complete solution than if you're constantly calling me, you know, maybe once every month to say, come fly this mission for us, etc., etc.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, and it's definitely more scalable, isn't it? It's scalable, very scalable in terms of
that.
So in terms of sure, you go.
Oh, sorry, and then the training aspect, I was going to say training, probably not as much money as the other ones, but the good thing about training is, and with technology is, I can do training and I can train anyone in Zimbabwe or outside Zimbabwe. You see what I mean with the training? Because the principles are the same. The same. You see what I mean? So then I have access to a larger kind of market or client base outside of that through the training aspect.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people should be, because definitely the borders don't exist anymore for a lot of people that still hang up on the geographical locations in Zimbabwe. You can offer a lot of services back home as long as you got internet connection. You know, you can definitely be getting customers right across the globe. Yeah, in terms of the services that you're offering. I just wanted to go now just to talk about in terms of the hardware itself, because I think that's a big industry. I mean, we've got big players like the DJIs. I didn't even know GoPro started doing drones as well. So there's so many. Lockheed Martin. Is it Lockheed? The aviation company. I don't know.
The defense company in America.
Yeah. So in terms of, is that a line of your business that you consider in terms of assembling drones, putting the hardware together, putting the software in these drones? Is it something that can be actually done in Zimbabwe, in your opinion?
Jeez, you know what? That you're poking at my heartstrings, man. So my work in the drone space is very holistic and broad based. So one of the things that I want to see happening in Zimbabwe, and which I truly believe, is that we have the ability to manufacture and develop our own drones, you know, that meet our own solutions, not just for Zimbabwe, but at least for the region.
Globally,
you know?
Definitely.
Type of thing, you know. So it's not something we're doing now, and it requires definitely a lot of money in terms of, you know, R&D and trial and error testing, all that kind of stuff, right? But it's something that I would want to see happening. Maybe it might not be us doing it, but I would like to see young people, especially guys in university. I'm like, if you're in a, you know, any sort of like technical or technology-based kind of program, or even the training schools that we have here in Zimbabwe, I would want to see those people working on those kind of projects, developing their own, but not developing, you know, one just for show. Because there's been a couple of people who've assembled drones and things, and they're like, oh, cool, and then it gets publicity. And I'm like, no. Let's build a product that is deliver a solution to a problem, right? It's also of a good quality, right? That it's robust and it's something that you can actually depend on, and someone can say, I'm making an investment in this. And also something that can be exported, okay? That has value beyond just within your locality. Let's develop those kind of products. And no one is doing that.
Yeah,
okay?
Definitely.
So it's a big gap, but I mean, look, it definitely requires also an actual proper industry to be in place where there's people who actually see the value, right, in investing in those kind of drones. So it's that kind of thing that's needed.
Yeah, definitely, because I see it's almost as if you have to have these more viable solutions that actually people are willing to pay for. then obviously in the longer term, having that manufacturing capability definitely even in Zim, because I think we can definitely enter this space, because I'm sure it's not very complicated if you're able to source the components from Asia or wherever and assemble these drones in Zimbabwe and have a Zimbabwean drone brand. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, sure.
Or 3D print them. You know what I mean? Like there's so many ways that we can leapfrog things where we don't even have to look to China so much, for certain things. But it requires, a lot of different things. It also requires the demand. You know what I mean? I can't make something that people don't want or need, and people have to respect the industry, the drone industry, and say, this is actually a quality of value. And then, then it makes sense for me to manufacture and build and all that kind of stuff. For now, people are just like, nah, I'll buy what I want.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I mean, I think we've covered out. So I wanted just to talk about briefly drone racing Zim, which is something that you were doing in 2016 with your co-founder. Is that still operating drone racing in Zimbabwe? Is that something you're still actively involved in?
Yeah, so drone racing Zimbabwe failed. Okay, that was our first drone initiative. When I started looking at drone tech, probably late 2015, and then into 2016, I then started investing in buying my own racing drones. At that time, drone racing was literally at the start, and there was a lot of predictions around it becoming a mainstream sport. It hadn't started getting the mileage and just the publicity that it has now. If you look at it from a global standpoint, drone racing is a cross between an e-sport and an actual mainstream sport, right? So it's like your F1. It's F1, but with a bit of like the e-sport aspect, because you've got goggles on. You've got a somewhat of a, it's not virtual reality. It's like reality, because you're seeing what the camera's seeing. You're racing around the track. You're doing all this. So we connected with the people who were in the global kind of movement of moving drone racing forward. We then decided, let's start our own drone racing league in Zimbabwe, right? So I invested in a bunch of drones. I think I had about 13 or 14 at the time. And then we're like, okay, cool. I want to spread the love of drones. Let's go into schools. Let's start having events. So we started having these events, right? And we started having these events. And the idea and the purpose was to try and get people to invest in their own racing drones so that we could build a community of people who are then doing these things, right? Because the competitions, for you to practice and become good, you can't be flying a drone every time there's an event. You've got to have your own drone, which you're flying at home, right? Which you're practicing.
Yeah, you're practicing, yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Makes sense, yeah.
So the uptake was, a lot of people were excited about it, they were loving it, but they would get excited about it at our events. And then after that, we would connect with them, got them all on a database and said, okay, cool, gave out information. Hey guys, here's a drone you can buy. Here's how we can get you to get your own. And like, no one was buying. Do you know what I mean? Like, they were happy to just come and fly ours. So so it wasn't growing. So the community didn't grow. Yeah. And then, there was no business model to support it, because the interest was only in, we want to fly yours. We don't really want to invest in ours and all that kind of stuff. So it was an idea, really, for me, the way I look at it is an idea that came to a market that wasn't ready for it. Okay. So we brought that in maybe too early. It was too soon for the type of market. I was excited. I could see the vision. I could see what it could become, but it was too soon. But now, interestingly enough, over the last year and a half, the pandemic, whatever, now drones are like, everyone's talking about drones. Everyone's seeing drones. Now we're seeing the value through our programs and our work through flying labs, as well as through precision aerial, is the demand for education. Getting this drone tech into schools and educating people. So now what I'm thinking of doing is bringing it back, because the more we get, young people, as we go into schools and start training them about drone tech and getting it into the curriculum, STEM programs, already I can see we're building a good base for us to then bring back the drone racing. So it's definitely coming back. Can't say when, but we're bringing it back.
Okay, yeah, definitely. I mean, hopefully, it can definitely bring back, because I can see a lot of relevance to the Zim context, because they definitely do drone racing in different countries. I think even right here in the UK,
Yeah,
it's quite popular, and people obviously they earn quite a lot of money. Some of them in terms of winning these
exactly.
competitions. Yeah. So I don't see why the people couldn't do the same in Zim. which leads me to my question. What I want to ask you in terms of what do you think has been your biggest lesson or lessons so far in terms of your entrepreneurial journey, starting businesses and running businesses and being involved in projects?
Wow. Look, I think we're still on our journey, and for me, I see it as if we're still at the beginning of our journey.
Okay.
It's only when you look back and you're like, oh, actually done one or two things. But so far for me, a big thing, and I guess I'll say a lesson for me, is the power of relationship, okay, and the importance of relationships. Being able to connect with certain people has opened up doors to other things, and not being connected to certain people has actually kept us out of certain conversations where we will probably be the best people to do the work, but no one knows we exist. No one knows us. So, we're kept out of the loop on certain things. So relationships are very important. And I think in whatever you're doing, even if you're outside of the drone industry, if you then decide one day to start something, you're going to have to leverage off the relationships that you had, previously in whatever you were doing. So the importance of relationships is one thing. Then the other thing is patience, as well. There was a thing like what happened with the drone racing aspect is I literally had an expectation that people would love drones and drone racing as much as I did, right? And I expected people to get it the way I got it, but they didn't. And I saw, okay, no, this is frustrating. It's not working. Let's just stop. Let's do something else. You know what I mean? But those people that didn't stop, so people who were also at a point of starting, whether in the UK or in the States, whatever, right? So people we knew who were starting out, and some people who are now big names in the drone racing space. We were together having conversations at the same level, talking about drone tech, right? And saying this is what we want to do. They continue doing it. Now they've been able to actually make a name for themselves. They're now professional drone racers. They're doing really well. They've got communities growing, whereas we pulled the plug too early on that, and we didn't continue growing that community. So I think that's a lesson learned just in terms of patience. Then in terms of just the actual business precision area, for us, the lesson has been get into people's faces. Get into people's faces as much as you can, because it's important to be, especially now for us, it's important for us to be the face that people see first when it comes to drones, so that we help shape the mindset of people around drones in the correct way. So I'd rather not let these substitutes and people who think they know what they're doing be the people who talk about drones. I've got to make noise about it. And the noise I'm making is about how to do things properly and why you should take this seriously. Not just, oh, drone is fun. Oh, I can do this. So it's really get into people's faces, be the first voice that people hear about drone tech, if you can. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think, that's really informative. I think that's some really good lessons that you shared with us. I think a few episodes that I've done so far, a lot of the entrepreneurs and business owners I've talked about, they've emphasized building relationships is definitely one that's really up there, because in terms, a lot of the times it's who you know, isn't it? Like you mentioned, that opens doors. And definitely using your social networks, and even just being part of other organizations, and definitely like what you've done with the flying labs, definitely has opened up that whole network to possibly build relationships with people across the globe, that you never in your wildest dreams be able to get in Zim. Just if you just existed in Zim and not being part of this network. So I think, which leads us to the final segment, because we're just coming up towards probably past the halfway point anyway. It's fine, but we just want to talk about your personal growth development journey. So if you don't mind, Tawanda, just to take us back a bit, so we just know who is the man behind Precision Aerial. So where did you grow up? What schools did you go to? That sort of thing. And obviously you can lead us towards your business adventures that you are currently involved in at the moment.
So I grew up, I'm a city boy. I grew up in Harare. That's where I'm from. That's where I've lived most of my life. I grew up here. I went to, primary school. I went to St. John's Primary School, then I went to St. John's and Kutama High School. And then I continued my education, went to Cape Town, South Africa, did business there for a bit, came back. Well, I wasn't able to finish, my business program, came back, started working. Then from there, managed to finish my program and my course there. That's in terms of business management. Then started doing marketing. So I took on marketing, postgrad kind of course diploma, did that. And then as I grew in my career, at that point, I was now working for a creative agency, a media production company. And as I was getting promoted in that space to more managerial roles, I then took on an executive development program at the University of Zimbabwe, which then helped me to get into the management kind of arena and space, and then became the business development manager for the business I was working for a couple of years. And I was in that space for a while. I really got into the whole, like management. And our business, the company I worked for, was part of a bigger group. So it was a group of companies, and it was actually an international, kind of company and group and that kind of thing. So we had connections with, other divisions and branches around the world and that kind of thing. And in that space, I really really understood and cut my teeth in terms of like management,
running business, yeah,
and navigating boardrooms and reports and budgeting and strategy and all that kind of stuff. So I really took part in the strategy development and that kind of thing, and got engrossed in that and learned a lot of things about across the board, from HR to tax and finance and accounting, all that kind of stuff. So that was a good kind of journey into getting to where we are today.
Yeah, definitely, because I think it seems like you gained a lot of transferable skills, especially when you're in those senior positions, of how to run a business and dealing with the day to day, and it's definitely set you up obviously for all the projects that you've been involved in. Yeah. So in terms of what do you think were your biggest lessons from being in full-time employment? Did you feel, because some people always emphasize there's a bit of job security whilst you're working in full-time rather than when you go out on your own. Was there any hesitation before when you took that leap? And can you just talk to us about that process? Yeah.
Sure. You know what? Everyone's journey is different. And from someone who was employed, looking out at people who are entrepreneurs, right? You look at it and you look like, oh, okay, everyone should be an entrepreneur. Everyone should be doing this. And the reality of it is not everyone is an entrepreneur. Not everyone should be out there running their business. There's some people who are best at being within a company structure and they thrive in that space. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
And I can't say to them, get out early and that kind of thing, right? Yeah. Right? Some people that's all they're going to do. And that's fine. It's okay. Not everyone's going to run their own business. So you've got to know yourself. That's the first thing. You've got to spend time getting to know yourself, know what your skills are, know what you're good at. So I'm a good starter. I'm good at starting things. Even when I was working within the business and all that kind of stuff, I was the guy like, okay, let's do this. Let's try this. Okay, cool. What is it going to take to do that? I'll run, find out, get all the information that needs to, do this. If there's paperwork, there's whatever, I can figure it out. I'll do it. Right? That's me. Okay. So whenever we're going into the business and there's something new, I will go to town. I'll do the homework. I'll do the research. I'll do whatever. I'll get it started. But I'm not the person who you're going to put in there as the manager to manage this whole process for an extended period of time. I'm going to get bored and I'm going to be like, okay, I want to move on to the next thing now. Okay. Right. So that's important. Okay. Now, for me as an entrepreneur, I probably stayed in the company longer than I should have, right? But that fear is what literally stopped me. And I'm like, I'm not sure. Are you sure? You want to, you know what I mean? If I had gone straight from, the little bit of schooling I had done straight into entrepreneurship, different story. The streets would have taught me a lot of lessons.
Definitely.
But I might be in a different place. I'm not saying I would be better off or whatever, but I'll be in a different place. But definitely for me, entrepreneurship is, yes, it's my thing. But it's not for everyone. So the lessons I learned were, especially around, like I'm talking about when we were dealing with within the group of companies, we had to understand your place, okay, right, and understand that a decision you make affects this part of the company or this division and that kind of thing, and that when you're working within a group, you've got to find a way, right, to manage expectations, even with things like the board. So our board would be like guys who are like accomplished people, all this kind of stuff, and they have their ideas of how things should be done. But we're in a space where like things are changing. So you've got to be able to take it and say, okay, I hear you, but I'm going to do this, you know what I mean? Like respectfully, you know what I mean? So it was also about navigating, and that's also important when you're learning how to manage teams, is you want to be able to take in people's value and show them that you value their opinion without making it like their opinion is the law and that's exactly what you're going to do. You see what I mean? Right? So in a team, you've got to respect people's opinions. You can't shut them down and be like, oh, that sucks. You know what I mean? We're doing it my way because I'm the guy. So, I learned a lot about that. I learned a lot of different lessons about just managing a business, like your taxes. Like, make sure your taxes are on point from day one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was one of the things that I had to deal with. I was involved in running the business, and it's creative agency production. So we're doing ads, we're doing all this kind of stuff. But then we're having issues now with our tax. And we had a tax consultant doing it for us, right? And then I could see quickly, this guy is leading us astray, right? On the tax. I'm like, no, let's fire the tax consultant. I'll do it myself. And my boss is like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I'll learn. So I learned tax. I picked it up, boom, boom, boom. Within 6 months, I was running our tax for our business. Then I started cleaning up the mess. It took 2 years to clean up the mess, right? That this person had done. But I saved the company over $100,000, right? By me running and doing the tax myself. Now you can't take that away from me in terms of tax. I understand it now. I understand the local tax. They might change 1 or 2 things, but I really understand tax. And those are things where like, I don't know if the streets would have taught me that.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of those kind of lessons just in terms of running a business and making sure that it's not just about the fun, cool stuff you're doing. You have to have systems, and then you have to have the right people in place to manage those systems. Okay, and so there's a lot that I've learned in just that experience. But I stayed too long.
I stayed too long. Okay, that's a fair point, definitely, because yeah, but I think you do raise a very important point, because not everyone is cut out to be going out and starting businesses, and definitely there's nothing wrong with self-awareness. I think is the biggest thing. If you know that sort of person that you can thrive well within an organization, always obviously you can try move up the ladder in that sense. But if you have that itch of wanting to try your ideas and go out there, definitely. It's something you should always be fueling, taking lessons along the way from your employment, even from your education. Definitely, it all leads into where you're really going in life. I believe, yeah. So I think what I just wanted to close on, because I understand you've written a book, yeah. So you're a very busy man. You actually have time to write a book. Can you just tell us about your book and what you sort of offer in the market in terms of the book that you've authored here? And yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I've been very privileged in my journey to connect with some really awesome people and have some unique opportunities just in terms of the short space of time I've been in the drone industry. I've pursued relationships, I've connected with people. And through that, I've been invited into different forums. I sit on the South Africa Drone Council, for example. I'm connected with drone pilots in America and different forums going on there. I help do trainings with people in Europe and girls in African American schools or centered schools in America as well. We do training programs. So I'm doing a whole bunch of different things. And through that, I've been able to connect with some people who then invited me to join this grouping of people who have been recognized as leaders or frontline experts when it comes to the drone industry and how it's developing around the world. So I was invited by a lady called Louise Yoop to co-author this book. called Drone Professional 1. So I co-authored Drone Professional 1. There was about 15 or 16 authors in total who contributed towards the book. So we all wrote a different chapter. And really what we were doing is creating a resource that would drill down on the different use cases for drones through our experiences in using and operating them, and what are the best practices, the compliance, the regulations, the hardware, the software, all that kind of stuff. So I co-authored Drone Professional 1.
Is it like a manual? Is it like a manual for the?
Well, I call it a resource book, but it's exactly the same as it's exactly the same as any other book. If you pick it, So it's a I call it a resource book, but it's like a novel. So if you look at it, if you look at the cover, you'll think, oh, Drone Professional 2, maybe it's technical, but it's literally like reading a novel and a book and that kind of thing. It's not like highly technical, but it's really looking at the different experiences of people who are, movers and shakers within the drone industry across the world. So it's written by people from America, Europe, Africa, Asia, and that kind of thing. So we just all came together, contributed, and wrote this book. Now, the book did really well. It was published in February 2020, right? It did really well online, actually became a #1 bestseller on Amazon in like 2 different aviation categories, right? And then what's happened now we're in, this year, and this is what's happening. We've just released the second edition of the book, which is called Drone Professional 2. And that launched literally like 2 weeks ago. And this one now has 21, authors or experts within the drone space, contributing and giving the information. I was privileged enough to be asked to write another chapter. It wasn't like a guaranteed thing. So I was invited again to say, hey, can you write, and speak to us a bit more about, the flying labs, the concept of drones for good and using drones for social and humanitarian impact, because that is like novel. It's a space that not a lot of people are involved with. People are more interested in the commercial space. So that book is really, I think just, I haven't read the whole book yet, but just looking at some of the chapters, I'm like, Drone Professional 2, I think, is actually like awesome. Like it might even be better than Drone Professional 1 in my view. They're both good, but I'm like really excited with the content that's coming out and the ideas and the diversity of it, and looking at how the drone industry and its impact on other industries and other kind of emerging tech spaces like AI and AR and that kind of thing. So it's really a resource book that I would encourage anyone to get. 1 and 2, if you can get both. It's available on Amazon, Amazon on Kindle. I think it goes for like, maybe $3 or something like that on Kindle. And then you can get the hard copies either from the authors directly, so you reach out to me, or you can also order on Amazon and then have it delivered to you. So it's really out there, and it's really for the global drone industry. Also helping to put Zimbabwe on the map, because, on Drone Professional 1, I was the first Black African to write a book on the drone profession. I was the only Zimbabwean featured in that kind of context. You know what I mean? And then also being the youngest amongst all the authors as well. So it was a lot of firsts in that space.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So, kudos to you, man.
yeah. So we're trying to push. We're trying to get Zimbabwe recognized. We don't want people to think, oh, Zimbabwe doesn't know what they're doing. We have to stand up and be counted and show that, look, guys, actually, right, we can be at the forefront of this.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the whole reason that I wanted you to come on this platform, just to spread that message of positivity, and obviously just to remind people to continue to push that envelope, because there's so many good things that are coming out of Zim, and there's so many guests that are going to come on this podcast that are going to really blow your socks off. I mean, they're doing some amazing things, and it's important that we hear your stories. So again, thanks again, Tawanda, for coming on to the podcast. And do you have any social media handles and how people can reach you? If you want to share with us any social media handles that if you're happy for people to reach out to you, or as well as some of your company contacts as well, if you're happy for us to to share them on this platform.
Yeah. So like musicians and artists have a stage name.
Yeah.
I have a stage name when it comes to the drone profession. So if you go online and you Google African drone professional, then you'll see all the stuff, and that's me. Okay, so I'm the African drone professional. In the drone world, they know me as the African drone professional. I've got a YouTube channel, so I'm an aspiring YouTuber, right?
No,
and I use my YouTube
content,
and I use my YouTube YouTube channel to share information about the drone space, helping people understand what it means to be a drone pilot, a drone professional, a drone owner, how to get into the industry, the opportunities in the space, how to register your drone, all that. I just share information. And I share information that's not just Zimbabwe centric, but it's for everyone who's an African, right? Or in Africa wanting to get into the space. So I take from all the different things that I know and the connections I have in different countries and what's happening in, the different spaces around drones. And that's on my platform. So you can go check it out on YouTube, subscribe to that. Please do that. Then on Instagram, just also search African Drone Professional. I'm on there as African Drone Professional. On Twitter, same story, African Drone Professional. And then on LinkedIn, it's my name, Tawanda J. Chihambakwe. Look out for me on LinkedIn. Let's connect. Let's stay in touch with each other. I think that's all my socials. Facebook, my name again, Tawanda Chihambakwe. Just look out for me there. But like I said, if you go in and you just type or you hashtag African Drone Professional, you'll see all my information. There's plenty.
Yeah, that's a really catchy one. I'm pretty sure a lot of people got that. They all missed that one, definitely. But yeah, I think we're out of time now, Tawanda, and I've got to let you get on with your busy schedule. And once again, I just want to say thanks a lot for coming on to this podcast. It's really been insightful and very informational in terms of understanding what's really happening in the drone industry, as well as the local Zim drone context as well. So once again, thanks a lot for coming on, and we wish you all the best, you and your team. And I know this is a difficult year. A lot of businesses are struggling with the COVID-19 pandemic, but again, I just want to say best of luck. And we're looking for more things to come from you. Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Thanks, man. Yeah, thanks for having me on this platform. Appreciate it and hope it helps.
Okay. Yeah. Take care. Thanks.